The CEO whispered, "Make it fast." What the single dad did next shocked everyone. The rain was coming down in hard, angry sheets the morning everything changed, hammering the city streets as if the sky itself was losing patience. Inside the towering glass building of Varon Tech Industries, a man stood shivering, not from the cold but from the weight of everything he carried. Samir Khan, a single father with exhaustion etched under his eyes, clutched a folder so tightly his knuckles turned white. Moments earlier, the CEO, Marcus Varon, a man known more for fear than leadership, had leaned close, whispered, "Make it fast," and walked away without waiting for a reply. And as Samir stared at the job he might lose, the rent he couldn't pay, and the sick child who depended on him, something inside him broke, then ignited. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of a human heart, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps the channel grow and lets us continue sharing meaningful stories. Samir had never imagined his life turning into a relentless marathon of responsibilities. But after his wife passed 2 years earlier, he had learned that life rarely asks for permission before reshaping everything. His daughter, Aisha, only 6, had inherited her mother's gentle smile but not her health. A rare heart condition meant frequent hospital visits, rising bills, and a constant fear that one day time might run out. Yet somehow Samir kept going, working long night shifts, sleeping in buses on the way home, and pretending everything was fine so Aisha wouldn't worry. She always asked him the same question every night, "Baba, are we safe?" And every time, he swallowed the truth and said yes. At work, no one knew the full story. People saw only a tired man who worked too slowly, who seemed distracted, who rarely spoke. But that day, when Marcus, the famously cold CEO, summoned him to the top floor, Samir felt his chest tighten. Rumors had been spreading for weeks about downsizing. The last thing he could afford was to lose the only stability he had left. Marcus barely glanced at him. He simply pointed to a stack of chaotic financial documents that other teams had failed to organize for an urgent investor meeting. Then he leaned in and whispered, without warmth, without care, "Make it fast." As Samir walked back to his tiny cubicle, his body trembled not from fear, but from a swirling mixture of anger, helplessness, and a desperate urge to scream at a world that seemed determined to break him. He sat, opened the folder, and stared at the mess. Numbers blurred, words twisted into shadows. He blinked hard, but exhaustion was winning. And then his phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. Aisha's condition had worsened overnight. She was asking for him. Samir felt the walls close in. If he left now, he risked losing his job. If he stayed, he risked losing the most precious thing in his life. Tears burned behind his eyes, but he couldn't let them fall. Not here, not now. He breathed slow and heavy, and made the decision no parent should ever be forced to make. He grabbed his coat and went to see his daughter. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet sorrow. Aisha lay small and pale against the white sheets, but her eyes lit up the moment she saw him. He sat beside her, holding her tiny hand in both of his. She told him she had dreamed of her mother again, standing in a field of flowers and calling their names. She asked him if dreams come true. He smiled, even as his heart shook, and told her they do when we fight hard enough. Something changed inside Samir that moment. He understood what he had to do, not fast, not rushed, not half-hearted. He needed to give everything, not to the CEO or the company, but to the hope of giving his daughter a future. When he returned to the office, drenched from the rain and running on determination alone, he sat down and began working with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. Hours passed. He reorganized financial summaries, corrected errors that had been overlooked for months, built projections that made more sense than the original reports, and pieced together a presentation that could save the entire investor deal. He didn't think about recognition. He didn't think about punishment. He simply worked for her. When he finally carried the completed file to the CEO's office, Marcus looked up with surprise. Samir expected anger for leaving earlier, maybe even dismissal, but Marcus said nothing, just opened the folder. His eyes moved over the documents, then they widened. Then they softened, almost imperceptibly. Marcus asked how Samir had managed to correct what 3 teams couldn't fix in 2 weeks, and in a single breath, pushed by exhaustion and love and honesty, Samir told the truth about his wife, about Aisha, about the impossible choices he was trying to survive. A long silence followed. Marcus set the file down and leaned back in his chair. For once, he didn't look like an untouchable titan. He looked human. He told Samir that his own father had died when he was young, and he knew what it meant to grow up fighting shadows. Then he did something no one at the company would ever believe. He apologized, genuinely. He told Samir he wished he had known earlier. And then, instead of firing him, he offered him a new position, flexible hours, full benefits, and a significant raise. The kind of offer that could change everything. Word spread across the building like wildfire. People were stunned, not by the documents Samir had fixed, but by the quiet strength of a man who had carried mountains alone. Some said it was impossible, others called it luck. But those who knew hardship recognized the truth. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who break the quietest, then rise anyway. Within months, Aisha began receiving better treatment. She smiled more. Samir slept more. Their tiny apartment started to feel less like a battlefield and more like a home again. And Marcus, slowly but noticeably, became a different kind of leader. Some said Samir had softened him. Others said he had simply been reminded of what really matters. Either way, one whispered phrase, "Make it fast," had turned into an unexpected turning point for everyone involved. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content for amazing viewers like you. Before we end, special request, comment below. Hope finds a way.